Look at you. You showed up for video number 2? Are you trying to be serious about this whole buying your first investment property thing? Well, hey, no better way to show that you're serious by actually taking freaking action. And so sometimes it's just getting educated and it's learning about the process so then you can actually take the physical actions that you need in order to put yourself in a position, in a situation to buy your very first investment property. So we're talking about this video because we ain't got no cash, homie, but we maybe have some time. And so if you have no cash, but you have some time, this what this video is for, to show you how to buy your very first investment property. And so I was somebody who didn't have any cash, and I had more time than I had money back in 2015. And that's when I read Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins. Then I read The Millionaire Next Door. This was a referral from a client that I had when I was a personal trainer. And then the third book I read was Rich Dad Poor Dad. And Rich Dad Poor Dad just completely transformed my mindset on what I wanted to be when I grew up. And at that time I was like 25, 26, 27 years old. And so this was back in 2015. And I was like, okay, I know that I want to invest in real estate. It makes sense to me. Passive income, sign me up for that. And so I started getting down on lots of Rich Dad Poor Dad, and he has multiple books. And then he did a seminar in my town. And I was like, oh, it was a free seminar. So I showed up to it, and that free seminar, it pitched another event, which was like $400 or $500, but we could bring a partner with us. So I brought my wife, and we went to that event. So it was like $500, and there was like a 2 or 3 day seminar. And that 2 or 3 day seminar, they talked all about real estate and all the benefits of it. And then they pitched like a $25,000 program. And I remember looking at my wife, and we're like, wow, like this information was great. It was amazing, but we didn't have $25,000. And at that moment, we realized that we just were not in a position where we could actually invest in real estate because we didn't have any cash. And so what we did is we went back to the drawing board and we got educated. And so I tried to learn everything I possibly could about real estate. And I read all the books I possibly could. And then one time I remember listening to this guy chat about real estate, and I was like, this guy knows something. And so I went and had lunch with him and realized that he had over $30,000 in cash flow just from his real estate. And I was like, wow, I need to get in this guy's airspace. And so I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, how can I provide value to somebody who makes $30,000 a month in passive income? And me, I'm just some broke 26, 27-year-old kid. Like, what sort of value can I provide? And I started thinking really, really hard. And I was like, wait, Logan, you're a personal trainer. And like most people, they want to lose weight. And so I got this grand idea that I would offer to train him for free, as long as he would teach me a little bit about real estate. And so that's exactly what I did. I offered to train him for free. He of course said yes. And then I basically picked his brain and learned everything I possibly could about real estate. But most importantly, what I got from that was a relationship with somebody who knew what the heck they were doing. And over the course of the next 7-8 months, as I continued to train him for free, I would say I picked up things about real estate, but most importantly, I just picked up things about him and developing a relationship with him that now in the future has been one of the best things I've ever done, and one of the best relationships I still have to this day. But I really got down on education, right? So I put myself around people who were doing real estate. I would listen to books. Then I started listening to podcasts. And so there's this amazing podcast out there. It's called the Bigger Pockets Podcast. And at the time I started listening to it, they were like on episode 300. And so I started listening to the Bigger Pockets Podcast at 300, and I just like worked myself back all the way almost to episode number 1. And what I really got from listening to that podcast was listening to the different real estate entrepreneurs that they were interviewing and hearing their stories and hearing how they thought and hearing how they did things. And I started to understand similarities between the different guests, and I started to pick up on things that really resonated with me and things that didn't resonate with me. And one of the big epiphanies I had was that there is so many freaking different ways that you can get rich doing real estate. And I can see why it's very overwhelming for people when they think about real estate, because they think about real estate as something small, but real estate is huge, and there's so many different avenues that you can do it. And that was one of the values I picked up from listening to so many podcasts, was just like what people were talking about, what their experiences were, what their personalities were, and seeing which of those actually jived more with me. And so then I started taking some of the people who I really, really liked, and I would follow them on YouTube or any of their social medias, like their Instagrams. And I picked up a couple people like Ryan Pineda, like Ken McElroy, Robert Kiyosaki, of course. And then I picked up this guy named Pace Morby, who was one of my favorite people. And so as I started learning more and more about them, I started to get down on them specifically and seeing exactly what their strategies were, so I could start to copy them, start to mimic them, start to do exactly what they were doing. And I was like, wow, like this is actually really helpful because I can like see like my values align a lot with Pace Morby's, and so I'm gonna start doing a lot more what he did. And so going through here is like helped me so much. So with that being said, if you're watching these videos and you're like, hey Logan, like there's something about you I kind of like, something that kind of interests me, and I think our values are very much in alignment. Our stories are maybe very similar. Well, why don't you think about subscribing to this channel and following me and going over some of the strategies I'm going to teach you in order how to buy your very first investment property, right? And so there's basically, when you have no money, okay? So now let's go back to some strategy here. We have no money, but we have some freaking time. How do we go become a real estate investor and buy our first property, right? There's basically going to be 5 different ways that you can go that are either free or low cost, and then they can start to incur a little bit of cost. And so the first thing is we can go drive for dollars, which means we're going to go look for properties that are distressed. We're going to go drive around and look for things that have yards that are overgrown, places that look vacant, places that are not taken care of. Basically, we're going to look for some problems, okay? Door knocking, very, very similar. The next step of that is like once we go find these places, we're going to go knock on the door and see if anybody answers. We can also leave letters. We can send mailers to people. We can text them, so we can go skip trace a address and go find who owns that property, so we have their contact information, so we can text them or we can call them. Either way, we're going to go look around for problems, distressed properties. And so when you don't have money, you got to go use your time to go find the hairy situation. This is actually how you're going to find the best deals. Okay, so now you're like all excited, you're out there, you're knocking on doors, and you're texting, and you're calling people, and all of a sudden, boom, you lined yourself up. And you got somebody who's interested in selling the property. And now you're like, oh, but Logan, I don't have any money. I don't know how to manage this deal. I don't know what I'm going to do. Perfect. Okay. So let me understand this. This is going to be super, super helpful. Every single deal has 4 components. We have a deal finder. We have the lending. We have the funding. And then we have the management of the deal. Okay. And so what you're doing in the situation is you're becoming the very first piece of that puzzle, which is you're going to go find the deal. Now, once you find the deal, here's where I'm going to help shift your mindset so you can become a real estate investor in 4 weeks or 4 months rather than spend 4 years like I did. Is that I thought that I had to also be the one who got the lending. I thought I also had to be the one who had to have the funds. I also thought I had to be the one who had to manage the freaking deal. Guess what? You don't have to be. You can be, number one, you can be the deal finder, and you can go find an experienced investor like myself or someone else who you know in your network who can provide the lending or who can provide the funding and who can also manage the deal. And guess what? You can get equity, you can get part of the partnership by you just being part of that first piece of the puzzle, which is the deal finder. Sometimes, actually, one of the most important pieces is the deal finder, because if there is no deal, then there ain't no money to stick anything into, right? There is no management when there is no deal. And so that's the simplest and easiest way how you can get your hands on your very first investment property is go find a freaking good deal. That's it, right? Now, second piece, you're like, well, Logan, like that's nice. Like I want a partner, but what if I want to like eventually buy a deal on my own? So this is the next level of that is you can go find the deal, and instead of you going and partner with somebody, what you can do is you actually can wholesale that deal. Now, this is not going to be a crash course on wholesaling. Wholesaling is not buying your very first investment property, but it can be a great strategy because now what you can do is, if you don't know what wholesaling is you get a property under a contract. Okay, so you have a home, you get it for $100,000, and then but the value on that property, let's say it's worth $125,000. So then you go and you find a end buyer. Now, what is an end buyer? An end buyer can be somebody who's actually going to live in the property. Okay, it could be somebody who's going to fix and flip that property, or it could be another investor like myself who's going to buy that property and they're going to put a renter in there, or they're going to short-term rental it, and they're basically the person who is going to actually buy the property. And so you can find one of those end buyers and you can assign it to them for, let's say, $125,000. And guess what? The difference between what you locked it up for the person selling it, and then you'd be the middleman for the person who's buying it, you get to create that spread. In this case, $125,000 versus you got under contract for $100,000, you made $25,000. Pretty cool, right? Just for literally signing a piece of paper over here and signing a piece of paper over here. And now what you do with that $25,000 is you put it in your investment fund and you use that money and you go buy properties for yourself, which we're going to talk about in the very next video. Is if you do actually have cash, then what do you do with that cash, right? You go invest it into properties. I'm going to show you exactly how to do it when you do have money. So if you're getting value from this, like, please let me know. Like this video, first off, subscribe to the channel, and I'm going to be sharing with you in the next video exactly how you can actually start to use the cash that you make to actually start to invest in real estate in a way that's going to pay you today, tomorrow, and for the rest of your freaking life. And all you got to do is hit that little subscribe button. It's free, right? It's free. And I'm going to show you in the next video how to use some of that cash, and you can invest it into real estate and make that money grow while you're sleeping.